I'm Joe Seagle, founder and CEO of Aspire Legal Solutions and MyLandTrustee, the largest and fastest growing land trust company in Florida. Our passion is helping people aspire to a better life. One of the many ways we do that is by helping them remain anonymous when it comes to their real estate holdings as they build their wealth. But it also extends to everyone else we touch each day. We're fortunate to work with some of the most successful entrepreneurs in the country who share our mission of aspiring to a better life, and we hope others will benefit from hearing their journeys, tips, strategies, and tactics to get there.
If you are the business owner and you think you are the culture, you are grossly, going to miss the mark. You represent the culture, but if you're not empowering your team members, no matter how small or big you are, to embrace that culture, but also exhibit that culture, it means that it's going to disappear the minute you walk out the door. And whether that's to go to the restroom or whether that's to leave for the day or whether that's to retire, good culture should be there no matter whether you're present or not.
That's Jason DeBono with NuView Trust Company. Jason started 2 decades ago as an intern and now leads a team of 50. Today, we discuss their recent strategic acquisition and how they got traction with the Entrepreneurial Operating System, enabling them to scale larger than they ever could have imagined. Welcome, Jason. I'm glad that you could make it with us here today. It's great to have you.
Hey, Joe. Good to see you as always.
Why don't you tell us, number one, how you got where you are, and also what NuView does? A lot of our viewers and listeners, they may not even know what NuView is all about. So why don't you fill us in?
Yeah, and maybe I'll kind of wrap those two things together because the understanding of what NuView does was a mystery to me when I started with the company, and it'll be 19 years that I've been there, and I started as an intern, and I kind of laugh because, I didn't know what the company did. I interviewed as an intern for SeaWorld and, large financial companies. And here I was like, who are these guys and what do they do? And I called my dad and said, Dad, what does this company do? And his response was, they look like they deal with real estate and retirement accounts, but you can't do that. Right. So obviously Dad says, no, I'm now more intrigued, go to the interview. And here we are 19 years later. But ultimately, and I learned this in the interview process and have been telling the story since, NuView is an alternative asset custodian. We hold retirement accounts just like Charles Schwab does, but we allow people to invest in whatever they see fit, including things like real estate, private notes, private equity. So we're not advisors. We don't tell people what to buy, when to buy, or where to buy. We simply are the vehicle when they make those investment decisions to allow those assets to be held in an IRA. Whether it's diversification or more about real estate than you do the stock market, or all the reasons why people buy these assets, we're just here to enable them to do it.
Yeah, I always tell people, I go, look, if you've got your IRA with Merrill Lynch, you're only going to be able to buy pretty much mutual funds and stocks and things that they allow you to buy. But you put your money with somebody like NuView, a self-directed IRA company, and you can invest in almost anything as long as it's not a prohibited a transaction or a disqualified person. You're allowed to do whatever you want. So I know we've got a lot of clients who are common customers, clients of yours that we take care of. They lend their money out. They hold notes and mortgages. They own real estate, buy and hold. Some of them they got into the Bitcoin, I think a little too early. Now they're getting back into Bitcoin. So they all kinds of different things that you can buy. Some of them even buy precious metals that you guys then hold as custodian for them. So yeah, it allows you to diversify your portfolio beyond stocks and bonds and mutual funds and things like that. So it's really great. It's a really great vehicle out there for people to use. So yeah, so I know we have a lot of clients in common. And one of the things about NuView that intrigued me that you guys do is you operate on Traction, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. Why don't you tell me a little bit about the company's journey on that and how it's helped you and how you've used it most effectively in day-to-day, quarterly, annually, how you guys use that in your day-to-day business?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say enough great things about Traction. We were introduced to it probably 5 or 6 years ago, and I think as a growing business, and for perspective, we're 50 employees. about $2 billion of just over 2 billion, closer to 2.5 billion of assets, and about 14,000 individual clients. And so, I share that to give a little bit of perspective of our growth over the last 20 years. And, what Traction has done or did and continues to do is it just helps as you grow and scale a business. It helps you, as business leaders, identify the areas of weakness. And I think some of the things that most business owners and business leaders, all kind of run into is, how do you scale? How do you find the right people? How do you, get people to grow? And EOS has just been a really great platform. It has a weekly meeting structure that really keeps us organized. It allows us to not have these hallway meetings or these sidecar meetings or water cooler meetings where, Joe, let's figure this out. And instead it's, hey, Joe, we're going to meet on Thursday at 9 a.m., every Thursday at 9 a.m. So any of these bigger ideas or things that you're really struggling with, not the recency syndrome, right? What's the client issue that we faced this morning? So let's talk about it. It's no, let's deal with those at the right level in the business. It's our time to work on the business, not in the business. And so that weekly cadence is critical. It tackles issues, it creates to-dos, it gives everyone a week to get their to-dos done, or 2 weeks if they need it. And then there's a quarterly cadence that allows us to kind of look at the year as a whole picture, but chunk it into 90-day quadrants. And so, again, using Joe, if you and I are in the business and our goal is to, grow by X, right? Number of accounts, revenue, whatever it is. A lot of these things, they look so big in a year that you either forget about them or you don't really start putting effort towards them till the last 2 months. Well, Traction says, put it on paper as a yearly goal, and then let's look at it each quarter and decide, are we going to approach this goal? If the answer is yes, then what are we going to do in the next 90 days to get closer, right? And so that 90-day rock, mentality has been critical. And then you have your annual goals, right? Your annual meeting, and you sit down and you look at those, and we look at them every quarter. And it's just amazing what some line of sight around your numbers and KPIs and goals and visions all kind of boiled down onto a couple sheet document can do to, one, bring clarity to the business, but two, really bring making sure that we're working on the right stuff. Because as business owners or entrepreneurs or professionals, let's face it, right? If we all took a real hard look at our days, 30, 40%, even though we're busy and productive, probably is going to the wrong things that aren't growing the business or aren't, adding the value in the right place.
Right. Yeah, we use it in our business. We started about much later than you did. Now, one of the things I believe you guys did was you tried to implement it yourselves in-house at first, and then over time you finally brought someone from the outside in. What was the difference between trying to do it yourself versus bringing someone in from the outside to help with that?
Man, it was, I think it's, and I'll use golf, and I'll even use maybe Tiger Woods. Everybody kind of knows who that is. It'd be like trying to learn golf on your own. And, you can get there, right? And there are people that, you take enough swings and you'll kind of figure it out. But what we found is that, having a coach, if you will, they're called implementers or, out there, and there's a ton of different organizations that provide that service. But it just, we were doing, I would say, a good job, right? We weren't embarrassing ourselves on the course, but, we weren't winning any tournaments, if you will. And I think getting a coach, there's a few things it does. I think number one, it creates accountability. It's easy to arm wave something that didn't go right when you're sitting at the top of the org, and you can say, oh, we'll address it next week. Sorry, I didn't do that. But when you come in and say, oh, sorry, I didn't do that, and there's someone else sitting there saying, why not? We said we were going to do it, right? So it's just helps create that accountability. And then it also helps us understand, it's an operating system. It's not perfect. It's by design there to be a support platform and system to operate your business on, but not every business is the same. I mean, you've got multiple businesses, and while there's similarities, they're not the same. And our business and your business are not the same. But the general fundamentals of running the business for me, for you, or anyone else really are similar enough. And I think the Traction implementers have helped us say, hey, this is what Traction says, But in your business, it really doesn't mean that, right? We've got to pivot a little bit. And some of that, we tried to maybe force kind of that square peg into a round hole, like, hey, traction says, and so we've got to. And I think it was almost like getting a little bit of grace that you didn't know you needed or wanted, but when you got it, you realized, okay, this actually works a little better. So we've really it was a great decision that we made, and it's an investment, and the return is there. You got to find the right group and the right organization, but it's definitely, I won't say don't do it alone, because there's some small businesses that may be bootstrapping and not able to get there just yet. But certainly make that a goal, is to grow or set aside some revenues to get you there, because it will pay itself back and then some.
Well, thinking back before you guys got on EOS and traction, what was number one, basically the size of the company, some problems you were having back then and how you were dealing with them? Try to think back to what it was like in the before time, and tell us what it was like then versus now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have to think too hard, because you remember the struggles, right? I mean, 19 years at this, and Glenn, who founded the company, we could probably sit down and tell you every struggle we've been through, because you just remember them. They're painful experiences sometimes. I think the biggest thing that I, if I go back, as we were growing, the first issue we had was scale, right? When you're a small company, you can't just add staff. At 50 people, I can add a few bodies and hire to the average and deal with it. When you're 10 or 12 or 14 people, you lose one employee and it feels like the world's coming down. Or you keep people in seats that shouldn't be there. And so, prior to traction, certainly setting the business up for growth and scale was a challenge. We still say this in our office, what worked for 1,000 clients doesn't work for 5. What works for 5 doesn't work for 7, or whatever the numbers are. And every business is the same. And so, the problems kept persisting. And on that note, I think the thing that was by far the biggest, item, and every business owner, leader I talk to or know, friends, people in different CEO groups, all have the same problem, which is we've got 10 or 12 items that just keep coming back up, and they just keep coming back up. And every business has them. They may be different from business to business, but they are the same. And there's different names for them. People call them different things, but it's this list of stuff and I think traction helped us navigate through it. And it took maybe a list of 10 to 12, and it helped us get it down to 1 or 2. It doesn't solve the problems for you. It just gives you the right recipe to recognize what the problem is and really challenge each other, to get to the heart of the problem, and solve it for good. And I'm sure, Joe, that, and anyone listening today knows that feeling really well, of like, gosh, I thought we fixed this a week ago, a month ago, a year ago. And the reality is you didn't. You probably fixed the symptom, not the virus. So I think there's some examples of some of the things, but really the scale side of it was probably the piece at the time we started implementing traction that added the most value overnight. Was kind of that right person, right seat, role clarity. Are we giving people the right opportunity to be successful? Or are we asking people to do so much that we're limiting their ability to be successful?
Yeah, I think you quickly learn people and processes. 9 times out of 10, that's where the true problem is. It's either a process problem or it's a people problem. And that's the hardest thing I think you have anytime you're discussing an issue, trying to solve it, is this a person? And if it's the person, is it just they're a good person, good cultural fit, but this just isn't their wheelhouse. They need to be in a different part of the organization. They need to be doing something else here, not that. And that's what we've picked up on over the years. 9 times out of 10, too, it's not any problem with the person. It's a process issue that we have, that we really need to work on the process. It may just be something as simple as how the phones are answered and then pass through, whether they're an existing customer or a new customer, and then how that process is handled to pass them through the system. Something that basic and simple sometimes you get lost, and yeah, you're dealing with the symptom, but you're never fixing the true issue. And that meeting every week, I know we have at least two meetings every week, two different departments, operations and then sales and marketing, and then also finance and administration. So we really have three that meet every week and go through that same thing. And I agree with it. It's extremely nice when an employee comes to you or somebody comes to you and starts going, hey, this is a problem, blah, blah, blah. And you go, great, that sounds like an issue. I think you need to put that on the list for this coming meeting. Let's discuss that at the meeting, not you and me sitting here solving it among ourselves because we're not getting good input. And another thing I found is, being the visionary at the top of the company, part of my job was always to come up with the big ideas. And once you have this structure in place, you find the ideas just bubble up from all over the place. And those meetings are structured in a way that everybody has input. They feel heard. And you also are and we have to tell new employees this all the time whenever they come into their first meetings. Say anything. It's just no personal attacks and no assigning motivation to anybody. Don't say, well, she's being this way to me because I don't have a college degree. Don't things like that. We don't bring that in here. But we get, everybody can say anything, and I've had people call me out. I've been told straight to my face that I am a horrible people manager. So I'm no longer allowed to manage people. And instead of, you don't take it personally, you go, okay, well, for the betterment of the organization, I will no longer manage people. I'm out of the way. And that's the biggest part I think that we've had to learn using these tools and the structure with it. So it helped you guys scale up, obviously. And now you've got 50 employees in this division, but you also recently went through a merger. How did it help you get prepared for that? And are you still using Traction after the merger?
Yeah, so we were part of a strategic acquisition, and it was an exit, and a very successful exit for Glenn, who founded the company, and really built a really good business over 20 years. And Traction is and will always be a big part of what we do. As we scale, our scale was 100% organic up to where we are today, which is, we've brought on all of our accounts. We've not acquired any other businesses. And so certainly, Traction has been really the backbone of that scaling. As we now go through this process, and it's very exciting because it's public information. The acquisition occurred in November, but we're still operating 100% autonomously as NuView, and we'll continue to do that, for a period of time until we start to really integrate the businesses together. And so we're becoming part of Inspira Financial. It's a $60 billion asset company with 7 million accounts, about twice the size of E-Trade when they were sold off. And so it's a massive group. We were brought in really to bolster their self-directed IRA and custody platform. So we're really excited about that. One of the things that, if you kind of look at growth and scale, certainly they've grown and scaled a different way. They've acquired a lot of companies, and that Inspira model is incredibly successful. But their growth and scale is simply different, right? You now have different challenges when you scale that way than we had when we scaled organically. And they're all good problems to have, just like any business that's struggling with growth is a great problem to have, right? We'd all tackle that problem any day of the week versus we're not growing, we're not growing the business. So what's been interesting over the last few months is, as I've been fortunate to be a part of kind of the integration and working through that, they view things differently, and it's not differently bad, it's actually differently really good. And so for them, they want to scale their operations, they want to be able to provide a better service and experience, and do that through integration. And so, for them, rather than turning internally and saying, how do we figure this out? It's their business model is, let's go find the right strategic acquisition that can come in and provide that level of support and opportunity for us. And so it's really exciting. And so we'll, be able to bring a lot of our know-how and processee, maybe not every element of it, certainly, but into their business. And so it also allows us now to be able to not just offer our clients, self-directed investment custody, right, which is what we do today. And we'll continue to do that under the Inspira brand and as part of the long-term plan. But we'll also be able to offer 1031 exchanges, which we don't offer today. We're also offer fund custody. So, groups that and issuers of these, funds do need a custodian. We don't do that today. That's another service, that they offer. They have an entire health and benefits platform. And so all of our clients that are business owners will have access to, health and benefits suite of products where they can offer it to their employees. We have a group that does automatic rollovers and term 401ks and plan 401k plan support that we don't offer today. And so, there's probably a few more, that I'm leaving out, and they're going to continue, to find additional businesses via acquisition that kind of go into this holistic approach. And so if you kind of think about it today, and I think, Joe, you're a prime example of this, you're a business owner, you're a real estate investor, right? So you've got, and you do business with NuView, right? From an IRA custody standpoint, you've probably got someone that's dealing with your 401k plan separately for the business. You've got someone that's dealing with your health and benefits. That's someone else. When one of your real estate properties sells and you want to do a 1031 exchange, there goes someone else. And so, you'll be able to, in very short order, right? Assuming that it's the right fit, you'll be able to have a holistic source, under one roof for the majority of those services that you're outsourcing today. So we couldn't be more excited. One of the things that I think is going back maybe to how Traction helped us, we're a very well-run business. And I don't say that out of arrogance. I say that because Traction has helped us build an amazing team. And we have a fantastic team because we've created a good culture and we've let the people come in and actually create an environment, that goes bigger and more beyond anything Glenn or myself, have done over the years. It's really the power of the team. And as a result, we did have the ability to look, when we were in the market for an exit, we did have the ability to look at a good handful of groups and organizations. And, we selected Inspira, not just on the financials of the decision. Certainly that's a consideration every business owner takes into account in an exit, but it was also, what does the next chapter look like? We could have sold our clients, right? That's in the financial world, that's an exit. But we didn't want that. We want the legacy of our employees, our team members, our leadership team, who are just fantastic and amazing people to live on. We wanted to actually see the growth of the business and the industry that we love. We were doing this before it was cool, right? And so Traction gave us that ability to be part of a strategic acquisition. Otherwise, I think if people, came in and looked at the business in the financial services world, they may have just said, yeah, we're happy to buy all your clients and move on. But instead they said, hey, good processee, good people. There's a lot more to offer here than just the clients. And so we're excited about the exit, but we're even more excited about the future under the Inspira flag. And our entire team is all fully intact and continuing to operate.
You brought up something there as part of any acquisition. And, we sold off one of our companies too last year. It's culture. A big part of EOS and Traction is culture. And that comes typically from the founders, from the visionaries, the leadership team who founded the company. It comes from their inside as to what that culture, what that mission, passion, and core values, what those are going to be. It's not just, words on a screen, words on a wall. So when you guys were looking at that strategic acquisition exit, how big of a factor was cultural fit between between NuView and the other company? How important was that in your calculus of figuring out who you would go with as a suitor?
That was really a big piece. And I'm glad you brought that up, Joe. And I think, Traction, one thing we didn't really talk about is, Traction starts with culture, right? The operating system is great and it's all good, but, it's kind of like the chassis of a car. Without it, you don't have a car. You may think you do, but you just simply don't. And so I think, culture it's something that I can't urge business owners, leaders enough to really focus on. And culture changes. Glenn started this company back in 2003. And, the culture when I started, and I was the third employee, was significantly different. Glenn didn't change. He still had the same values and all of that. But what works for 3 people doesn't work for 20, and it doesn't work for 50, and inspires 3,000 people, right? And so, you have to kind of view it. But what's interesting is culture doesn't go away when you reach a certain number of employees. It just means more effort has to be placed on it. And really what we found, and I think speaking from our business, at 50 people, culture is really finding, hiring, and empowering the right people. Because if you hire people that don't line up with your culture, the culture is going to change. And we went through periods in the 19 years that I've been there where the culture has deteriorated. And in most cases, when we kind of looked and said, hey, stop, this is a problem, let's fix it, it was a people issue. The people weren't driving the mission of the culture. And so, I think it's something that is so critical in a business is, if you are the business owner and you think you are the culture, you are grossly, going to miss the mark. You represent the culture, but if you're not empowering your team members, no matter how small or big you are, to embrace that culture, but also exhibit that culture, it means that it's going to disappear the minute you walk out the door. And whether that's to go to the restroom or whether that's to leave for the day or whether that's to retire, good culture should be there no matter whether you're present or not. So, a little bit of a soapbox for it, but to answer your question more deliberately, Joe, it was a big factor for us. We got the opportunity to talk to a lot of companies. I mean, thankfully, we had a lot of interest in what we did and the opportunity, for someone to kind of continue to grow the business alongside us. And I have to say, I mean, I give Inspira so much credit because they've had to scale, and what they've had to do that we never did was we hand selected our team members, right? In your business, Joe, you continue to hand select your team members. You hire them, you hire against it, you fire against it. In their world, they're acquiring companies. And so, as they acquire more companies, they inherit cultures. And so, I'm incredibly impressed with not only have they built a really good culture, but they've been able to do that with, multiple businesses that are all kind of being slowly merged together to create the overall brand. So it was a big part of the decision, and it's been so far everything that we were hoping and expecting them to be. They've been, and then some, and that's really a great sign.
That's great to hear. Let's turn a little bit to you real quick, because now you're sort of the top of the NuView, at least. I don't know exactly. How do you fit into the overall Inspira now? How do you fit in there?
Well, we're working through that, and it's something that is, it's been interesting, and I kind of come back to, the other side of the equation, and I was a shareholder in NuView. I was fortunate to get some ownership as part of my work over the time I was there. And, at the time, the exit wasn't as attractive to me, right? Glenn, who started the company, and there's a pretty good gap in age. And so for him, an exit meant he could retire. And for me, even selling my shares, A, I can't afford to retire, but B, I am not in a position to retire. So, going into it, I won't say apprehensive, because I fully support, the decision and the why behind it, and the timing was right. And so that is, all of that was positive, but I had a lot of those things swirling through my head. And I know, all 50 people in our building have the same thing swirling through their head, which is every single person could not be happier for Glenn and the exit, because every business, entrepreneur, that is their goal. Right? It's to build a successful business that somebody else wants, whether it's legacy or whether it's to sell. I mean, that's the goal, right? So every single person has so much respect for Glenn that that is 90% of it is, wow, congratulations, so happy for you. But let's talk about the 10% is like, what the heck happens to me? And,
Mhm.
the strategic acquisition was interesting because, they have a similar business line today. So we were not a new product to the family. We're growth of that product. We represent a strong contributor on the process and service side. But at the end of the day, from the outside in, your first assumption is, well, if they already do what we do, they don't need me. I'm disposable, right? They didn't want me. And we really messaged hard to our team. If they didn't want the team, they would have bought the clients, but they opted to buy us. And so let's part of that is trust, right? We've built a culture of trust. And so we've not had any turnover. We've not had people depart. Our turnover is lower in Q1 of this year than it was in Q1 of last year, right? So it's our team is really approaching it in a great way. A few of the departments have already integrated, and so they've actually joined the larger departments like HR, for example. A few of the folks on our team that worked in HR are actually working in bigger capacities in HR at Inspira. And so I think people are starting to see, working for a small company versus big company is different. People have to, kind of decide what they want to be. But, my advice and encouragement to the team is, and for myself is, hey, let's let this kind of story unfold. Let's do our jobs like we do every day. Let's keep delivering and growing the business, which is what our mission has been, since the day that we all became employed at the company. And let's see what opportunities present themselves. They have guaranteed, I should say, maybe I hate that word, but they're not interested in any layoffs or anything. They want everyone on our team to be on their team. And what we don't have, full insight into as we're continuing to go through integration is exactly where, right? But one of the things that I love that one of the executives at Inspira, is kind of, had preached is the whole purpose of this is 1 + 1 = 3. If we just want it to be 1 + 1 = 2, then, we'll buy it, we'll rip it apart, we'll throw it all together, which is kind of the private equity way, right? Buy it, gut it, pull it in, increase our multiple and move on. And, that's not their goal. That's not their mission. And they really do want to grow the businesses via acquisition and via organically. And so it's been exciting. So, what the future holds for me, I'm excited to be part of the integration process. I'm excited to be, leading NuView in that process. And as we get a little bit closer towards that, we're still penning to paper a lot. As we get closer to that, we'll have to see exactly where I can add the most value. And I've always been a fan of kind of thinking of it that way. And if I can add value and I can be rewarded for that value, and the company can be rewarded for the efforts as well, then it's a win-win. And that's what we're working towards.
Cool. What does a day or a week in the life for you look like now compared to before the acquisition?
I'd say it's probably 70% the same, meaning, I still have the same role that I had prior. I still oversee the day-to-day activities of NuView. It sounds cliche. I think a lot of leaders, say this, but I genuinely mean it. I have such an amazing leadership team that we've built over the years, right? The right people in the right seats, empowered to do the right things, and they've all delivered. And it's so refreshing as a leader, for me, because it allows me to take that 30% and I can step away from this business and focus on integration and understanding the goals and objectives on the Inspira side. And so, a day in the life today is about 70%, kind of overseeing some of the day-to-day stuff in just our normal course of business. Still developing strategy, identifying, new markets or opportunities. So we're still doing a lot of those same things. And then about 30%, maybe 40%, depending on the day, is meeting new folks on the Inspira team, understanding their product, service, development, roadmap, vision, and making sure, my belief is that, and I preach this to our team, our job is to be good stewards of our business as we integrate it. And so we need to keep growing the business like we did yesterday and no different, but we also need to make sure that, if there are opportunities for us to do things differently or through integration, make adjustments because it lines up better with their goals and visions, like, well, of course we're going to do that. That's the position that we're in. So, I wouldn't say I'm juggling two different worlds because that makes it sound maybe a little bit bigger, broader, harder than it really is. But, just trying to make sure that we're as prepared for integration and managing all the ancillary items that come with that process.
Good. I know, I mean, part of your scaling was you guys started doing a conference. I think it's 2 or 3 day conference called ALTSCON. I don't know if it's always been called ALTSCON. I can't remember what it used to be, but putting on that event, and I think you've got it coming up October 17th and 18th here in Orlando. And tell me a little bit about ALTSCON, where it started, why you guys did it, and what people can expect coming up in October.
Yeah, Joe, you've been an integral piece of our educational platform in many fronts. But one of the kind of missions that we've had since I started, with the business, which is a long time, is education. Today I think people are a little more comfortable and understand what a self-directed IRA is, right? Most people at least have some familiarity. They've heard it, seen it, but that has certainly not always been the case, right? And so education has been a primary platform for us, and we do that by finding industry experts like you, Joe, to come in and help us on the legal side because we don't know that stuff, and so we want to make sure that our clients are as informed as possible about their investment decisions and investment opportunities. And so ALTSCON, and we used to call it Planning for Prosperity. I think ALTSCON's more the hip name for it today, and our marketing folks kind of came up with that, and I love it directionally because it makes it sound a little bit more mainstream, right? And versus something that's a little like Planning for Prosperity, as the generations kind of shift and people start thinking about money a little differently today than maybe they did 10 years ago and 15 years ago. So yeah, we started it. It used to be a 1-day event. It's grown. It's now a 2-day event because we just had there's so much demand for people to have more content. And so, coming up October 17th and 18th here in Orlando. It is in downtown, I think at the Marriott Hotel. Not that that's terribly relevant, but it's a 2-day event. We encourage people, to come in and join us. I think we've got 10 or 12 different speakers, that are going to be speaking at the event. From the main stage, we've got some breakout sessions. We've just got a lot going on. We've got David Green, who's hosts the real estate podcast for Bigger Pockets, as our keynote speaker. Kind of a cool story. Police officer turned real estate, entrepreneurial /mogul /podcaster. Many of you guys know him through the Bigger Pockets podcast. Great event. We'll have probably 20 or 30 exhibitors there, showcasing their services or offerings, that complement or work well inside a self-directed IRA. So, well worth the time and effort to be there and expanding your knowledge, on how to be a better self-directed investor.
Sounds fun. I know we've attended it back when it was Planning for Prosperity, and we're looking forward to participating in it again this year. It's right down the street from our office, so it's not far. So we're looking forward to it. It's always been a great place to network and get to know people in the business. So we'll put a link to it in the show notes so that anybody can click on it and get their tickets to show up and come in and get to know everybody on your team and each other. So it'll be great. But Jason, I want to thank you so much for coming on today. I think we've kept you long enough. Is there anything else you'd just like to add before we leave? The big, and if not, there's one question I always ask everybody before they leave. Our mission is to help people aspire to a better life. And I always ask all my guests, who is someone who has helped you aspire to a better life for yourself?
Well, that given the context of business and aspiration and growth, without question, that is Glenn Mather, who founded NuView. He's been a great friend. He's been an amazing mentor over the years. He's pushed and challenged, and there are times I've gone home and went, I can't take it anymore. And then I wake up and realize he was right. I probably should fix that problem that he's been harping on. Great visionary, but also a big heart. We started a charity called Share the Love, officially as its own 501c3 in 2017. But we've been at it for about 10 or 15 years, raising money to provide mobility. And I've always felt like I had a giving heart, and then I realized when I met him that I didn't. He certainly made me realize I could do a heck of a lot more. And without him pushing me in a lot of ways, I wouldn't be prepared maybe for the next step of my career. As we join the Inspira family, and you got to think differently when you've got 7 million accounts than you do when you've got 14,000, right? It's just a different business model. And so, as a result of his leadership and his guidance and mentorship, and, it's taught me how to be a better leader, and it's taught me how to think differently and think a little outside the box. And it's certainly taught me how to make sure that I'm giving back and not, taking for granted, how fortunate we are in this world, in this life. And so that's a super easy answer. And really lucky to have stumbled upon an internship and spent the last 19 years really, working for him and alongside him and learning a heck of a lot along the way.
Wonderful to hear. I love Glenn to death too. He's been a real inspiration for me as well. So with that, I want to thank you again for coming on, and I hope everybody has a great rest of their week. Thanks a bunch. Thanks for listening to this edition of Trust This. If you got something out of it, please press like and subscribe and give us a 5-star review to help us reach others who can benefit from this series. Until next time, keep aspiring to a better life.